Well, welcome back. Thank you for coming back and watching another video about how to review information after the model has run. Now, in our last video, we talked about how to run the sequence sets. In this case, we only ran the subset here, but I was just going to kind of click back here just to show you that these are all the reports that are available for you to run currently for the June 2018 forecast scenario that we're running here. As you can see, we have some reports that have run and some that have not. If you try to browse a report that hasn't been run, what will happen is that you just won't get anything. You just won't be able to see anything. Actually, I don't even think it will let you even go there, because when a report runs, if it doesn't run, it will not show up in the batch tree right here in the browse report. So that, just keep that in mind. So if you try to look at something that is white, and which usually means it has not run, then you will not be able to see the data results. Now you can see the data if you go to like edit time data, for example, and you can see that data, but that's not the same thing as what numbers actually flow through the report and calculate together to come up with some kind of result. Now for those reports that have run, that use the data, have ran, looped through, and come up with a result, those are green. Now we've covered in the prior video that this one is like a yellowish color. That's just a warning, but there's numbers that are flowing through that too and giving us a result. So if it's any other color but white, then it most likely has some numbers in it for us to look at. Now the model also has to completely run from beginning to end. Just because the report is green doesn't necessarily mean that it might have data. If you don't let the model run from beginning to end, it's not going to have data in it. So that's one thing that if you like stop it like midstream through running the calculations, you will not see data in those reports. So let's just look at one here real quick. We're going to look at a really basic one. We're going to look at Liberty revenue. So we can go here. If you right click it, right click the report, we can go to browse. So you click browse, and right now you can't see anything. It's probably because we have the wrong entity selected. So we go here to select entities, and this is just telling the model what entity you want to view within this report. Well, in this report, because you have Liberty revenue, Liberty only has one entity within the planning entity group that it calculates numbers for, and that is Sierra Pacific. So we'll just unselect this one because it doesn't consolidate. The report doesn't consolidate at this moment. So we'll just select Sierra. Then we come back to browse report, and now we can see these numbers. We can see the line labels, and we can see the data for each period the numbers are falling through. Now you'll notice in mine, I started off with that you can see the actual line alpha characters. Now if you don't want to see these alpha characters right here, A, B through Z, and it can go on for a while. If you don't want to see those, and in some cases if you're new to this, you probably won't even see these anyways, but let's say that you do have these showing right here, you can always go back, just click here on your user ID, which won't look like this because this is my user ID, but you click on your user ID, and you'll come here to report labels, and there is this area right here called display line labels. If you want to change it so that the the reference, which is what it's called, the alpha characters that show on the side, those are actually referred to in the model as reference. And so I can change that and just say I only want the line label. So come back, and now this blue highlighted, it just remembers where the last time you selected within the batch, and we'll just click back there. See, now they're gone. Now you'll notice that this report is nice and clean. There actually might be more lines within this report. And if you wanted to see more lines, we go back to that real quick. So click on your user ID. If you wanted to see all the lines, you can click this box right here that says show all lines. Basically overrides any calculation that causes certain lines to be hidden. I'll click that, go back. Now I see all the lines within this report, even the hidden ones. So we'll go back and check that off. Now you'll notice that this report it starts with January 2018 and ends with the year 2018. So it's like 12 months plus an annual column. That's actually a specific setting that we have, which you can see here. It's called time settings for batch. Now you can change these. In this case, I have it set on this one. These will change over time as the model gets older and that we progress through different scenarios. It may not always be called 2018 by month, but the ones that usually will always be the same are these ones called like default all-time monthly, default all-time annual. So let's change it to that one. And now you see it starts with 2014. The reason why is because this scenario we haven't updated it in a while, but it continues to start with 2015. And whenever it starts with 2015, it also looks back 12 months into the past as a starting basis for actuals. So that's the reason why it starts with 2014. And then it goes all the way to the end because we told this model to run to 2027. Now some reports actually will run one extra year. So sometimes you might actually see an extra year here. Like for example, the bond report, I believe it runs one extra year. So you'll notice that if you come here, you'll see one more extra year of run. And now if you change it to annual, now you'll just see it annual. Now sometimes, because we have made some changes to the model, sometimes we're not always cognizant of all the changes that we make in the model, and sometimes we forget a certain step. And sometimes when we model things, we forget to set the month to annual code. What that means is that we need to tell the model what to do with information that's 12 months of data and what it means when you look at it from an annual perspective. What I mean by that is that when you look at cost, for example, or revenue or sales data, usually you want to sum up all 12 months and put it right here, right? But if you were looking at the income statement, I'm sorry, not the income statement, if you were looking at the balance sheet, if you're looking at a balance sheet, you don't want to see every balance, all 12 months added up and put into an annual number, right? You only want to see December's number in the annual column. So that's what I mean by the month to annual code. So sometimes you might see errors when you look at data annually. If you see any errors that doesn't seem right, just contact your admin and he can have that fixed. Now you can see in this report we have various formatting. So you can see here, like this one has a dollar sign, also has 2 decimal points. This one is no dollar sign and 3 decimal points. You have one up here is like percent with 2 decimal points. So this is kind of like, here's an example of one I was just talking about. This is probably one that you don't want to be added up 12 months. This is probably one that you want to change to a factor where it only shows you the last December number. Anyways, we can go into that one later, but essentially what I'm saying is you can change the formatting in these reports. You probably want to contact your admin before you do it because you have to unlock your base attributes case in order to change this formatting if you don't like it. But suffice it to say, you have these formatting. The one on the left here changes formatting on the left. This one on right here formats the data, so everything to the right of this bar. We can go into this another day when we're talking about formatting and formulas. But here, I'll show you a couple things when you browse a report. So when you want to look at information, let's say that I'm looking here, I want to drill down into this information. I want to really figure out where all this information is coming from. So I see here I have Liberty megawatt hour sales. I want to look at 2019. It's the last year that we'll have Liberty, hopefully. Anyways, when you go to drill down on data, right here, drill down on data, you can pull this thing down just a little bit, and you can see that we have sales forecasted through April for this one. The reason why you see this is because we're looking at it from an annual perspective, and you can see that it's telling you all the numbers that make up this annual number. So here we can click really quickly on April, the last month that will forecast it. It'll automatically change the menu down here, and it'll go, and you'll notice that it switched from an annual to a monthly. And now we can see here, this menu also changed up here to show us where this information is coming from. Sometimes it won't go directly to this part. You might have to keep drilling down, but here it actually went directly to the first, basically the end. And you can already see this is the data point. This is actually input data. You can see this is the overlay case that it was input, the revenues 2018.06 forecast case, and it was updated by me just a few days ago on June 6th. Actually, I'm sorry. No, we updated that last year. So you can see that this information this information provides some interesting detail. It can tell us what case it came from. It can tell us what time it was changed, or the last time it was changed. It can also tell us what user changed it. Now obviously you'll have to know whose user ID is what in order to figure this out, because it's not ever going to tell you that this is Jordan Kendall, for example, right here. It's just going to have a user ID. And then it also tells us which actual data point is being used. So now you could have more than one data point in here, but the one that is further down the list is always going to be in that one that's going to win over the other one. So we can see here, there's the number 31902, and we can go here and we can scroll over. We can even switch to other numbers. You can see here we got other information there that was updated. I actually want to click here real quick and just show you something. You'll notice that like when I clicked on this one, it's not an input data, right? So you can see here it's a formula. And this formula is telling you how this information was created. So it's the first step on this formula was to take this number that was a rate, multiply it by 1,000 in order to convert it from essentially a kilowatt hour rate to a megawatt hour rate. So we drill down on that further, then we can see, okay, well, how did it get to that rate? Well, it looks like it has two different numbers that are added together to get to that. Let's just drill on the 160 rate, and then we drill down on that, and it tells us, oh, okay, so we have a renewable split factor. That's how we got that even further. And so we can drill down even further to this 163 rate, and then we can see, okay, how the rate was created. It's a total cost divided by total megawatt hours. And that's how we get a cost per megawatt hours. But we want to go even further, and we want to say, okay, well, where did the total megawatt hours come from? And then we can see here we got addition of output to lines, NNEI output, renewable output, Valmy megawatt hours. And then you don't have any there. Let's go on to total output to lines. And then we see that here, now we drill down even further, we can see that it's actually coming from a report outside of that report. So originally we were in the report called Liberty. Now we're in this report called Sierra Pacific Electric BTRDA and Tread Calculation. This is where all our deferred energy is being calculated, and so that information is probably sourced from there, from some other group in the rates department that manages deferred energy. They probably help us put that information in there. And so then you have this line, tells you the line within that report. It tells you what planning entity, which happens to be the same planning entity that Liberty is rolling over. And then you can it's not even the final number. So if it's still blue, it means you can still continue to drill down on it. So let's drill down even further. So we see here that it's an addition of two numbers, Liberty and FERC Other, which happens to be Pershing and Hawthorne, right? I believe that's right. Oh, it's total Nevada, so that's all of Nevada plus Pershing and Hawthorne, I'm sorry. So we can click here on Liberty, and we can see here Liberty makes up two pieces, subtracting out the solar part. And there, we get to this point, and now we see what number is coming through now there's a lot of inputs that are going into the number for Liberty that we just drilled into. So there's different paths we could have took, but we got to this point. This is one data point that makes up that whole energy rate that we started out with. So here we can see that the one number that won was 47,857 for megawatt hours for Liberty. You can see here I also input this one as well back in April 2nd, 2018. Now, this is another good example of showing it's coming from this case, but someone else had also input data a while back. You can see here we had a consultant here that worked way back when we were first implementing the model, and he input this data back in March 26, 2015. And he input this number, which is not too far away from what we had for the new number, but you can see it's input into a different case, this base case. We don't use this case very often, but it was we kind of sometimes make changes to it for other reports. But you can see here that this winner logic. Now, whenever the admin or anyone talks about winner logic, we're talking about is that as data progresses down through these reports, it says, okay, this is where the data came from, so add it to here. Is there no data? Okay, then use the previous one. There's no data here, use the previous one. No data here, use the previous one. And it keeps going down, 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 and then it says, oh, wait, there's new data. Let's use that one. And so then it swaps out the 47,372 for the 47,857, and then it starts again. Any new data? Nope. Any new data? So it just keeps going down, and then until it gets to the end, you see how the last one is what wins out over the previous one. And so that's what we mean by winner logic. Now, if there was information in this incremental case, which is much different than an overlay case, so if there was like a value right here, let's say like 50. If there was like a 50 right here, a positive 50, then what would happen is that it wouldn't just change this to a 50. It would just take 47,857 and add 50 to it. So then it would become 47,907. And that's what the incremental cases do. It does exactly what it says. It's incremental. It adds to or subtracts from information that's input into the model. Now, we don't use incremental cases very often, and we try to avoid them because the problem with them is that people tend to forget about them and forget that they have data there. And so it's always best practice to just replace your old data with new data. And actually, to be honest, we should probably, as the admin, if we had the time, we should go back and clean up the model and take out these old data points like this, because this is a really old data point and it shouldn't really be in there anymore. Someone should go in and actually delete this, and so that it's no longer there and it's no longer a possibility to cause an issue in the future. So let's go all the way back. And so the other thing that's cool here, just real quick before we go back, I just want to explain how that we have these backward buttons. So this one, the first one here, that's kind of like a more of a grayish color, not the white one. This grayish color one will go back up one, previous where we were drilling down. And it'll keep backing up until we go back to the ones we had before. Now if we drill back into it, let's go back to where we were. Now if we hit this white button, it's kind of like hitting the big rewind button on your DVD player or on your YouTube video or whatever. And if you hit this button, it's actually going to reverse it all the way back to the very, very beginning. So boom, we're back where we started. And so that's the backwards button. You see that once we get all the way back to where we started, it grays out. This is no longer white. Now another thing that's really kind of cool too is that if we drill down on numbers, and we go here to Libya energy rates, let's kind of drill down a little bit further. Let's say that we're right here. We want to look at this total cost, and we're like, wait, I don't have an annual column right here. And sometimes you don't want to have to go back out of the model and then come back to this particular spot and say I want to look at it annually. Well, maybe you want to just add it up really quick. You just want to say, okay, well, what is this annual number? Actually, I could go here, select January, for example, drill over a little bit to December. And so I have those 12 months of total cost added up. I hit this action panel right here, and then boom, you see that right there? Sum. It summed it up all for you right there. And not only did it give you a sum, it gives you a max value, it gives you a min value, and also gives you an average. And actually, it also tells you the count, just in case you accidentally add up too many months or too many numbers. It'll also tell you, did you what count have you selected? In this case, I counted 12, so I got 12 months. So that's really useful, so that you can add up things really fast, especially too if you're concerned about is everything footing. So I want to see, like, for example, here, January 2019, do these numbers right here, these four, do they foot to this 14912? If you look, yes they do. Obviously it's rounded, so you got 14912. So you can check to see if these things are footing the way that you would expect them to be. You can see here, another one right here, 636201. 636201. Now sometimes this is important to foot things, because sometimes things don't always foot. There's probably because maybe there's a model error. Maybe we are summing some numbers in there that shouldn't be in there, and so this number may not tie. If that's the case, just contact your admin and maybe we can get that fixed. It may not be a huge issue because maybe no posting, if you will, to the ledger actually depends on this total number anyways. But for presentation purposes, you might want to have it right so that when you output this report, it is obviously outputting the correct value. Now let's go all the way back to the beginning again. And so since we have this in annual, you can see here we have all this information that's really nice, neat, and we kind of want to preserve this. We want to maybe take a snapshot of this. Now we can also go to the action panel and we can hit output to Excel. So we hit output to Excel, what will happen is it's going to output exactly what you see here. These lines right there, the time frame in which you selected it, and basically everything you see is going to output. Now you need to make sure that when you output this, before you output this, that you make sure that you have the UIPlanner add-in for your Excel. If you don't have this, contact your admin so that you can get this, because it will provide you extra features for UIPlanner, but it also allows you to output it into this nice format. If you don't have the UIPlanner add-in for Excel, it won't look like this. It actually might not even output it properly. In some cases, what happens is that if you don't have the add-in, or if the add-in is not working, sometimes what happens is this is all you see. You just see the scenario info, and you don't see this. You just see one tab. So if you see something like this when you output to Excel, then you probably have an error and you'll need to contact your admin to kind of help you through that and try to figure out, why are you having error? Do you have the right Excel add-in, or, is there, are you using the appropriate Excel add-in, for example, because, some Excel users have a 32-bit version of Excel and some have a 64-bit version of Excel, and the UIPlanner add-in, I believe, is different for both, and so you have to make sure you get the appropriate one from your admin. So here's the other thing you can see is that it output all the information just as I saw in UIPlanner and the time frame that I had selected. And so you can see this is obviously defined by the parameters within that report. Sometimes you won't actually necessarily see the entity and the report name. That is something you have to specify in the report, but usually you'll always see the scenario when it outputs. The other thing that's cool about this output to Excel is that the scenario field, which always outputs every time you output to Excel, it outputs this information from the scenario. It gives you some basic information from a high level of like what was made up of that scenario. It tells you the name of the scenario. It tells you the version of UIPlanner that's running, how many years are running, the base year, attribute, and other attribute, formula, the overlay cases, actual case that was used, and it shows you some of the report actual dates that were set for all these reports, the sequence set, related scenarios, and some of these will be more relevant to you, and you'll understand if this is important to you or not. But like for example, in this report, I can see here that this Liberty Revenue Report is actually set to July 2015. That's probably not important. It's probably, we don't even actualize Liberty Revenue, so I wouldn't worry about that too much. But you can see here that someone had set the actual state. If that's a problem, like for example, people with deferred energy report, that's really critical that their actual state is set to the appropriate one that they're trying to update. So here, I'll go ahead and close this. I'll show you a couple more things here real quick. I apologize. 1 second. So if you come here to select, if we come here to, let's say this report, we'll go to electric retail revenue, or go to browser support. You'll notice there's a lot of rate schedules here. And for some of you, we'll notice that because of its associations that it has to planning entity, electric revenue class, and electric revenue summary class, that you have these extra radio buttons. Now if it doesn't have as many associations, you just won't see these radio buttons. It also has activity. But for example, I can click this one and I can say this one's not very useful because this report rolls over Sierra, but if we go to this one, it'll actually give me, if I uncheck this one, hit residential, I'm sorry, not that one, residential Sierra, because this is the Sierra electric report, and I come back over here, you'll notice that if I select here, for example, say 2019, it's going to give me all of the rate schedules that are assigned to Sierra Pacific Power residential revenue. So you can see here I got all of them that are defined or that are available. I mean, it probably won't show all of them if there's no data. If there's no data there, then it's probably not going to show it. But these are all the ones that do have data that are showing currently right here. give you an example. So here's one. This one has more data. This is actually probably all of the residential revenue. You see it's repeating a number. That's probably not an error. That's just probably just the way that the model functions for that particular item. What if we go down here further? I'm going to go to here, summer peak. So these are actually all the ones in the residential for Sierra that actually have a summer off-peak megawatt hours. Other ones, here's all the ones that have megawatt hours summer on peak. So what I mean is that it's only going to show you the entities that actually have data. Any ones that have 0 all the way across all months across the whole model, it's just not going to show it. The other way is that if you want to roll up entities, let's say that you didn't want to do it this way. Maybe you only wanted to look at a specific group of entities within the residential class. In that case, you'll have to individually select the revenue ones that you want to look at. In this case, they happen to be organized in a pretty methodical way. So let's say we only want to look at the D1s and not the DM-1s. So we just select those, and we can just say, I want to actually see them as only total. What that means is that when we view this browse report, it's going to add them all up and show them as one value. I'll show you what I mean. So here, let's go back down here, and we'll say this megawatt hour total. These are the megawatt hour totals that are currently in here for those ones. The other ones I selected must be all 0 because they're not showing here. But these are all the ones, all the D ones that have currently megawatt hours in the model. Now, if I wanted to not do the only total and I said with total, what that means is it's going to show each report individually within the browse report, and then they'll show that same thing I just showed you for only total, but they're going to put that at the very bottom. So I'll click that. So you see how it says domestic or D1 domestic use. If I scroll down the report, keep going, you'll see the next one, D1 flex pay. And then if you keep going, D1 NIM NMRG. And then if you keep going, we go down, let's go down to almost the end here. Oh, that's not the end yet. Now you can see this is the total at the bottom. So what it did was it just added up all of those, just as like I said before. And there you can see the totals again. Whereas the ones up above here, so this one is showing you actually values for all 12 months because we're looking at annual, so we can drill down. And you can see that it's basically when we don't have more than one entity, it actually converts it into showing you all the data for that one particular entity. In this case, it actually shows you up here drilling down on this line for this entity in this time frame.